After completing my 10th class exams in 1979, my father suggested that I go and help my father's uncle and learn astrology. Mathematics being my favorite subject, I learned the calculations. My grandfather taught me how to calculate the inclinations of each planet and how to calculate the lagna and the meridian center MC, and he gave me some birth charts to draw. Thus, I learned how to draw the birth charts first and showed interest in predictions. So, my grandfather told me some predictions, some of the tips that he usually uses for predictions, and after learning those tips, I documented some of them. I verified with my father. While my father and my grandfather have laid the foundation for me to get interested in astrology for almost a decade or 2 decades, I didn't show any interest. In Hindu astrology, when Saturn transits through the 12 houses, and the total duration it takes is approximately 19 years. So when transit Saturn enters the 12th house from the natal moon for a given native, what I mean by natal moon is that the moon position of the moon at the time of native's birth is called natal moon. So when transit Saturn enters the 12th house from natal moon, in Sanskrit it is called Sade Shani. Shani means Saturn, Sade means 7.5 years. So the total time taken for the Saturn to the time it enters the 12th house, and by the time it leaves the second house from natal moon, the total period is 7.5 years, and this 7.5 years is called as Sade Shani. Basically, in Hindu astrology, this 7.5 years is treated as the most troublesome period for the native. Usually for a given native during his or her life, the minimum, this 7.5 years of Sade Shani, the native will face twice. This is the minimum, and at the most 3 times. So in one's life, this 7.5 years of Sade Shani, the native will face 2 times at the minimum and 3 times at the maximum. And what happens is that this 7.5 years is divided into 3 parts. So 3 parts. The first part is 2.5 years, which starts when transit Saturn enters the 12th house from natal moon, and in 12th house it stays for 2.5 years. Then the second part is when transit Saturn touches the natal moon, and then the third part is when transit Saturn enters the second house from natal moon. So what happens is that during these 7.5 years, as I said earlier, depending upon the negative impact of the Saturn, the native will see how difficult the life will be. And this is in general. Unfortunately, if that native's Vimsottari Dasa is a type of the planetary period calculated in Hindu astrology using the motion of moon. So if the Vimsottari Dasa is Saturn, then the native will find it extremely difficult to withstand, because from the Sade Shani, is the 7.5 years, the impact of transit Saturn in relation with natal moon is one way, and the Vimshottari Dasa is again Saturn, then it just gets double amplified. So in this presentation, what I did was I took three important politicians in the United States and who are having this Sade Shani period as of now, and then analyzed showing how the impact of the Sade Shani is on that native's life and both career and the family and personal life. Let me try to explain the birth chart notations as per the South Indian method. What you see here is this is how there are two types of birth charts in South India, and this is one of them, and this is the one which most of the Indians use it. So let me explain the houses, how the zodiac signs are defined here. The first and the foremost Aries is, you see it here, and then move on the clockwise direction. The third house is Gemini, the fifth is Leo, and the sixth is Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Aquarius. So when you see it, you start Aries in that first house and then you go round the clock in the clockwise direction, then you will find all the 12 houses. And let me explain the definitions, the nomenclature of the planets, how we put it in the chart. AS means ascendant, Sun SO, Moon MO, MA is Mars, ME is Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Rahu and Ketu. These are the north and south nodes of the moon. These are the imaginary points which are assumed as to be. Rahu is a catalyst to Saturn and Ketu is a catalyst to Mars. So they are assumed points on the moon, and we just calculate it. And whenever for any given planet, if you see in left and right parenthesis covered brackets, that means that planet is in retrograde motion. And now let me go and show you what is Sade Shani right now. If you see here, transit Saturn according to sidereal ephemeris entered Libra in June 2012, and from there you add 7.5 years, so it will leave Sagittarius in December 2019. So any native who has their natal moon from Virgo to Sagittarius, you can consider them to have gone through the Sade Shani recently. For example, let me take the example. This is Christie, the New Jersey governor. If you look at his birth chart according to sidereal ephemeris, the one we calculate in India, moon is in Scorpio. Currently, that means Christie is undergoing Sade Shani starting June 2012 and lasts until December 2019. As I said earlier, when transit Saturn entered Libra in June 2012, so from June 2012 till November 2014, which is 2.5 years, transit Saturn will be in Libra. That means for Christie, transit Saturn is in the 12th house from the moon. And from November 2014 till June 2017, transit Saturn is in Scorpio. That means for Christie, transit Saturn is in the first house from natal moon, or you can say it as transit Saturn is co-joined with natal moon. This is the second part of the Sade Shani. The third part of Sade Shani is when transit in June 2017, transit Saturn will go to Sagittarius and stays there till December 2019. So that is the third part of Sade Shani for this native. Now let us go and look at Christie's the Sade Shani analysis. As I said earlier, you can see that for him, the Sade Shani started in June 2012 and it lasts all the way up to December 2019. And in Libra, according in Hindu astrology, in Libra Saturn is in exalted position in Libra. So that means from June 2012 till November 2014, transit Saturn is in exalted position, and then transit Rahu entered Libra in 2012 and left in 2014. So what you can see here is between December 2012 and June 2014, exalted transit Saturn and transit Rahu, they both are in Libra. Now go and look at Christie's birth chart. For Christie, Libra is the ascendant, the first house, and the first house lord is Venus, and Venus is residing there in first house. So what you see is that during this period, first house means self. Tanustanamo is self, and the first house lord is also self. So the negative impact for this native started in December 2012, and it increased slowly, very slowly, that by June 2014 it has reached its peak. So between December 2012 and June 2014, this negative, because the house it is impacted is self, and moon indicates mind, so this native, which is mind, has got ideas or thought in such a negative way during this period, that whatever the negative way he had thought, if he hasn't seen the impact of the result of that decisions that he made during this period, he is for sure going to see it in the next period, that is from June 2014 till wait a minute, not June, here it is in November 2014 to June 2017. So let's go and see what happened between December 2012 and June 2014. I'm sure a lot of people, those who are in US, are aware of the Bridgegate, the so-called Bridgegate issues for the governor that happened in 2013. If you look at it, it exactly happened. It's slowly, the negative impact of this transit Saturn has slowly increased starting December 2012, and he has done something during the year 2013, which is now taking the effect. So now which is June 2016, between now March 2016 through September 2016, that is when transit Saturn is in Scorpio, is in the second phase of the Sade Shani. When it is touching the natal moon, the impact of whatever the decisions that the native Christie has made between December 2012 and June 2014, whatever the decisions he made it, that impact is what he will see from November 2014 till June 2017. Now, when you look at it, what is going to happen? First and the foremost, if you look at Saturn, from ascendant 1, 2, 3, 4, Saturn is the 4th and 5th house lord. 4th house means home life environment, and Saturn is residing, the natal Saturn is residing in 4th house. So the 4th house, the home life environment, is controlled by natal Saturn, and Rahu, who is residing in the 10th house from ascendant, Rahu is residing, and Rahu is having a direct aspect on the 4th house. So in general, the 10th and the 4th house are now governed by Saturn and Rahu together. 10th house is career, and the 4th house is home life environment. When exalted transit Saturn entered Libra and transit Rahu co-joined with transit Saturn, this 10th house, which is career, and the 4th house, home life environment, they both got disturbed. So something went wrong somewhere during that period pertaining to his career, which has resulted in some disturbances in his career, and that disturbances had shown in his home life environment too. And in November 2014, transit Saturn entered Scorpio. That means the second phase of Sade Shani began, and so it is touching moon. So you go and see moon. Moon is the lord of the 10th house. That means during the first phase of Sade Shani, he has done something pertaining to 10th house, creating disturbances in home life environment. During the second phase of Sade Shani, because moon is the 10th house lord and because transit Saturn is touching, whatever that disturbances has created in the first phase of Sade Shani is now has to be, he has to take the actions for that. And that means from November 2014 till June 2017, anything wrong that he had done pertaining his to career and his home life environment, that actions, whatever the actions he has done in that during that period, now he has to repay for those actions. And those who are in US can clearly understand that the so-called bridge gate, now it came up and it became such an issue. That is exactly because of this Sade Shani, Saturn, transit Saturn, and touching the natal moon. Once in June 2017, once transit Saturn leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius, which is the second house from moon, but the third house from ascendant, and Jupiter is the lord of that house. And Jupiter is in the 5th house, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is in the 5th house. So his Jupiter, natal Jupiter is the lord of the 6th house too. So something pertaining to death, illness, employment conditions, these three are governed by the 6th house lord, which is Jupiter. And Jupiter being the lord of the 3rd and 6th houses, and transit Saturn is entering 3rd house in June 2017. Something pertaining to that, deaths, illness and employment conditions will happen. Something negative will happen to that. And to add further, transit Saturn's third aspect, the third aspect of transit Saturn is on Aquarius, its own house, but Jupiter is residing there. So whatever that something pertaining to death, illness and employment conditions, whatever that is, that whatever is something is supposed to happen, that gets amplified so big that the native cannot withstand to that negative impact. And if you look at that time when transit Saturn is in Sagittarius from June 2017, natal Saturn, because it is having a direct aspect on the 10th house Rahu, and I think by that time transit Rahu will enter Cancer, the 10th house, and touching the natal Rahu, with 10th house being career and moon being the lord who has already got afflicted earlier. Something pertaining to his career, a drastic change will happen pertaining to his career. Let's wait and see what happens. And before June 2017 means that is when transit Saturn leaves Scorpio. So if my prediction goes true, he will be having some sort of a unavoidable disturbances pertaining to his career and home life environment. This is the natal chart of the 2016 US Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, who is also known famous as the Relator Mughal. Now let's go and look at his chart. First and the foremost, like I said earlier, for this person also, moon is in Scorpio, but here moon is the 4th house and moon is the lord of the 12th house. 12th house has a number of 12th house pertains to a number of characteristics. Some of them is pleasures of bed, one of them is imprisonment, and mokshasthanam means is entering the spiritual life. So let's see for this gentleman what will happen during the Sade Shani period. If you look at it, as usual, the Sade Shani for this person also started in June 2012, and as I said earlier, for Christie, for this person also transit Rahu and exalted transit Saturn are co-joined between December 2012 through June 2014. And now, during that period, we have no idea what happened to the NATO. Now, when transit Saturn entered Scorpio, the fourth house, where it touched natal moon, and look at it, Rahu in the 10th house is having a direct aspect on the 4th house. Just like Christie, even for Donald Trump also, Rahu is in the 10th house having a direct aspect on the 4th house. Now, the transit Saturn entered Scorpio in November 2014 and it will stay there for 2.5 years, which is approximately June 2017. That means if you followed the US politics, after transit Saturn entered Scorpio, Mr. Trump has declared his intention to run as a potential Republican presidential candidate. He announced it in June 2015. That means after November 2014, when transit Saturn is in the 4th house. And from June 2015 all the way till June 2016, he had his primaries, he won the primaries, and then in November 2016, he is going to compete with the Democratic candidate for the US presidential post. Now let's go and see what happens when transit Saturn is in the 4th house. When transit Saturn is in the 4th house, it touched natal moon. Moon is the lord of the 12th house. I already said you that. And so as soon as transit Saturn touched the natal moon, and transit Saturn and natal moon are having a direct aspect on Rahu in the 10th house, and Sun is the first house lord, self. When these two when transit Saturn are started having a direct aspect on the 10th house, first and foremost, he rose very high. But the way in the primaries, those who have watched the primaries have seen what tactics he had used to go up the ladder. Now that once he entered it, he became the presidential candidate in June 2016. The second part we have to look at here is Moon is the lord of the 12th house, where Saturn is residing, natal Saturn is residing. Now transit Saturn has touched natal moon from November 2014 onwards till June 2017. So something pertaining to the 12th house has to come out, because natal Saturn is residing there and transit Saturn is touching the lord of the 12th house. And the most important thing is natal Saturn is the lord of the 6th house. 6th house deals with deaths, illness and employment conditions. So something pertaining to one of these three has to come out. And those who have noticed, who have heard the news, a lot of women had come out saying that they were being abused by Mr. Trump, and that's all because of the transit Saturn touching the 12th house lord. 12th house lord way is moon way, and in 12th house you see natal Saturn and Venus residing. And you might ask what is this? Because in 12th house pertains to pleasures of bed. So, and Saturn will do something that is against the normal method. Since this is the pleasures of bed, you have to anticipate that something that is against the normal way will happen. And once transit Saturn entered the Scorpio and touched the moon, sorry, it has come out that a number of women, he had sexually harassed a number of women. Now what will happen once this June 2017, once in the transit Saturn will be here in June 2017. So I'm not going to say in what will happen for the elections, because that's not the principal idea for me here pertaining to this presentation. So till June 2017, this native will come across a number of issues pertaining to 12th house. As I said earlier, 12th house is spirituality, pleasures of bed, and possibility for imprisonment. And when you look at natal Saturn, natal Saturn is also the lord of the seventh house. Seventh house deals with business. So something pertaining to the negativity of his business will also come up during between November 2014 to June 2017. Now let's go and look at transit Saturn's aspects. The most important is transit Saturn residing in the fourth house. The third aspect is on the sixth house, which is the employment conditions, and Saturn, natal Saturn owns that one. And transit Saturn seventh aspect is directly on the 10th house, career, where Rahu and Sun are residing. And another important thing you have to see here is transit Saturn's 10th aspect. Transit Saturn's 10th aspect is on the first house, self, Tanusthanamo. And if you look at it, the lord of the first house is Sun. And already transit Saturn's 7th aspect is on the 10th house where Sun is residing. That means from the 7th aspect, it is looking at Sun. And through the 10th aspect, it is looking at the house owned by Sun, which is the first house. And not only that, even transit Saturn's 10th aspect is on Mars. Mars is already a malefic planet. So transit Saturn, who is also a natural malefic, is looking at another malefic in the first house. First house is self. And if you look at Mars, Mars is the lord of the fourth house and ninth house. Remember, transit Saturn is in the fourth house itself. And it is looking at the first house where the fourth house lord is residing. And Mars is also the lord of the ninth house, which is Dharmasthanamo. And this is, so let me summarize transit Saturn's the most important aspects. The 7th aspect and the 10th aspect are very important for this gentleman, because for the 10th aspect, what you notice is it is looking at the 10th house, career, where Rahu is residing. That's a malefic. And Sun is residing. Sun is the lord of the first house. Okay, so through 7th direct aspect, it is looking at a malefic Rahu, the career, 10th house, and Sun, the lord of the first house. Now go to the 10th aspect. That through 10th aspect, it is looking at the first house. And its lord is Sun. It is already looking at Sun through its direct aspect. In the first house, there is Mars, another malefic. So transit Saturn's 7th aspect is on one malefic Rahu. Transit Saturn's 10th aspect is another malefic Mars. Also, transit Saturn is in the fourth house owned by Mars. Fourth house is home life environment. And Mars is also the lord of ninth house, the Dharmasthanama. So when you combine all this information, what you see is transit Saturn. First of all, transit Saturn is touching moon. That means transit Saturn, the malefic transit Saturn, is impacting the native's mind. Now the question comes is, mind for what purposes? First and the foremost, its impacting is the 10th house, the career, the first house, the self, and the fourth house, the home life environment. And then these are the houses. Then you look at the lords. First house lord, the Sun. The fourth and ninth house lord, Mars. And ninth house deals with the Dharmasthanama. And also, Saturn's direct aspect is on the natal Rahu. So this tells you that between November 2014 through June 2017, the native will opt something against Dharma, because the ninth house lord got afflicted. Ninth house stands for Dharma. And pertaining to home life environment, self, and career. That's all. So when you add all these things, and those who were watching the news since November 2014 till now will understand that how whatever they have seen TV pertaining to this native during this 1.5 years, and what I was concluding is exactly the same. So what is going to happen next? Means before June 2017. Before June 2017, in my opinion, this is just my opinion and to the best of my knowledge, something pertaining to this person's career, self, home life environment will happen, and to the extent possible, it will be against Dharma. And when you look at transit Rahu is also in the first house, until November 2017. So transit Rahu, apart from transit Saturn spoiling the first house, transit Rahu also is residing in the first house, indicates that the first and the 10th houses were completely spoiled because of transit Saturn. And in the first house, the ninth house lord and fourth house lord is there. In the 10th house, the first house lord is there. So for this native, there's a lot of things happens from a negative perspective, and that pertaining to the self, himself, to his career, to his home life environment, and above all, something that happens, that either he may do it or it may happen to him, is against dharma. Let us now analyze Paul Ryan's birth chart. First and the foremost thing that we see here is, first let's say when does the Sade Shani begins. So transit Saturn entered Virgo in December 2009. So that's which is Virgo is the 12th house from natal moon. That means for this native, the Sade Shani started in December 2009, and you add 7.5 years to that from then onwards. That means it will be completed in June 2017. Okay, now let's go and see between December 2009 and June 2017, what is the Vimsottari Dasa. If you look at it, according to Vimsottari Dasa, Saturn Mahadasa started in January 2007. That means when the Sade Shani period was running for this native, then Mahadasa is Saturn. So the impact of Sade Shani will it be at its peak for this native because of this reason. Now let's go and start analyzing the Sade Shani part of it. First and the foremost, from moon, the 12th house is Virgo. Virgo is empty, but transit Saturn entered in December 2009, and until June 2012, transit Saturn is in Virgo. So in his life, nothing specific has happened. Okay, then in June 2012, transit Saturn entered Libra. Libra is the sign where Saturn gets its exalted position. That means it becomes very powerful there. So starting June 2012, for 2.5 years, approximately November 2014, these 2.5 years, exalted transit Saturn is touching natal moon and natal Jupiter. First and the foremost, according to Hindu astrology, whenever Saturn has any sort of relationship with Jupiter, disappointments and hurdles are guaranteed. So here, exalted Saturn is co-joined with natal Jupiter. So we have to go and look at which houses this natal Jupiter owns. Here Jupiter owns the second house, third, fourth, fifth, second and fifth houses. So second house is family. So something pertaining to family for this native will be resulting in disappointments or hurdles, something. Then let's go and see what is the ownership of moon. Moon owns 12, 11, 10, 9th. The 9th house. The 9th house is Dharmasthanamo, Dharma. And when transit Saturn touched natal moon, then something pertaining to against Dharma will be happening. This native will do something pertaining to against the Dharma. Fine, just keep those two aside. And in starting December 2012 till June 2014, transit Rahu co-joined with exalted transit Saturn in Libra. So when exalted transit Saturn is in Libra, which is the second phase of the Sade Shani, we had presidential elections here, which is in November 2012. If you look back, and after June, somewhere in June 2012, Paul Ryan was chosen as the vice presidential candidate for November 2012 presidential elections. And go back, and when you analyze what has happened between June 2012 and November 2012, you will see that a lot of chaos, and both for him, for the NATO, and the NATO's family, you can see it because of this impact. And after November 2012, transit Saturn left Libra and entered Scorpio, and there it will stay till June 2017. And now after November 2012, I think somewhere in that 15 or 16, that's when he became the Speaker of the House. So, and it's clear how difficult his life was once he became the Speaker of the House, which indicates that during the last phase of Sade Shani, he has inherited the speakership position, and along with that came all the troubles. That the reason why he has inherited is because he has accepted the speaker position, because transit Saturn being in the second house from moon, the Sade Shani is going on. That's the last phase of Sade Shani. And when you look at the Saturn Mahadasa is still running, and Venus Antardasa. So main period is Saturn, the sub period is Venus. And Venus is the lord of the 12th house, 12th and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, 12th and 7th houses. And Venus is residing in the 3rd house. So from transit Saturn's 3rd aspect is on Venus. When transit Saturn is in Scorpio, its 3rd aspect is on Venus. So when in Saturn Mahadasa and Venus Antardasa, that's the time when even though he was not interested in it, it's the Saturn that has forced him to accept the speaker position as a Speaker of the US Congress, and along with it came all the troubles. So when you look at this, by June 2017, this NATO will be out of the Sade Shani. That means he don't need to worry anymore about the problems that he is facing now or earlier. And that means Saturn enters the 2nd house from 3rd house from natal moon. So his moon, Saturn is way away from moon, natal moon. So all the mental issues, anxiety, the anguish, the disappointments, the hurdles, etc., all those will be gone. And when you go back and see the Vamsotri Dasa, Saturn Mahadasa and Sun Antardasa, that means the main period is Saturn and the sub period is Sun, starts in January 2001. Sun, when you look at it, Sun is the lord of the 11th house, is residing in the 3rd house along with Venus. Remember, I said that transit Saturn's 3rd aspect is on Venus, so its 3rd aspect will again be on Sun. So until June 2017, this NATO will have a lot of issues when it comes to mental anxiety, but from January 2017 onwards, that issues will slowly reduce because the Sun sub-period has started, and that might make him think about his future plan, what will be the next.